What if I told you that beneath the dense jungles, towering mountains, and sprawling deserts of the Americas lie secrets so profound they could rewrite history as we know it? For centuries, explorers and archaeologists have ventured into the unknown, driven by whispers of ancient cities swallowed by time, places where civilizations thrived, then vanished without a trace, leaving behind only riddles etched in stone. These aren't just ruins, they're time capsules waiting to reveal their stories to those daring enough to listen. And today, we're about to uncover 25 of their most astonishing secrets. Picture this, a vast network of roads hidden beneath the Amazon, so precise it rivals modern engineering. Or a pyramid buried under layers of volcanic ash, its chambers still echoing with the footsteps of a forgotten people. From the cliffside dwellings of the ancestral Pueblones to the golden legends of El Dorado, the Americas are a treasure trove of mysteries that defy explanation. Each lost city we explore holds clues, pieces of a puzzle that connect us to the ingenuity, the triumphs, and even the tragedies of those who came before us. This isn't just a journey through crumbling walls and faded artifacts. It's an expedition into the heart of human curiosity. What drove these ancient builders to create such marvels? How did their knowledge, their cultures, simply disappear? And what can their stories teach us about our own place in history? As we peel back the layers of time together, you'll witness the awe-inspiring brilliance of civilizations that mastered their environments, charted the stars, and left behind legacies that still leave experts speechless. So grab your metaphorical explorer's hat, because by the end of this journey, you'll never look at the past the same way again. Deep in the uncharted heart of Honduras' Mosquisha rainforest, a legend has whispered through the centuries, a city so magnificent, its buildings gleamed white under the jungle canopy, earning it the name Ciudad Blanca, the White City. Spanish conquistadors wrote of elders who spoke of a place where golden statues stood in plazas, where a civilization thrived in isolation before vanishing without a trace. For generations, explorers risked deadly snakes, thick vines, and relentless rains chasing this phantom, dismissed by many as just another myth of El Dorado. But then, modern technology revealed something astonishing. In 2012, an aerial survey using LIDAR, a laser mapping tool that pierces through dense foliage, uncovered not just one city, but the ruins of an entire forgotten civilization. Massive plazas, pyramids, and intricate earthworks emerged from the digital scans, proving the legends held truth. Archaeologists who later ventured into the jungle found stone sculptures of jaguars and serpent gods, half buried in the mud, untouched for centuries. But why did this society disappear? Clues point to a combination of factors: soil exhaustion from intensive farming, outbreaks of disease brought by European contact, or even internal conflict. What makes this discovery so thrilling is how it shatters old assumptions. These weren't isolated tribes, but a sophisticated network of cities connected by trade and culture. The White City wasn't just a place of treasure. It was a testament to resilience, a civilization that adapted to one of Earth's most hostile environments until it couldn't. And that's the real mystery. What final straw made them abandon their homes? Was it war, famine, or something we haven't even considered? The jungle guards its secrets tightly, but with every artifact unearthed, we get closer to hearing the White City's lost story. For centuries, the Amazon was thought to be a pristine wilderness, barely touched by human hands before European arrival, a place where small, scattered tribes lived in harmony with nature but never altered it on a grand scale. But that assumption was turned upside down when satellite images revealed something staggering: the outlines of enormous geometric earthworks, causeways, and circular plazas stretching for miles beneath the forest canopy. This wasn't just a handful of villages, it was evidence of a sprawling, interconnected civilization, home to possibly millions of people, the key to this discovery. Deforestation. As patches of jungle were cleared, strange shapes emerged, not natural formations, but the remnants of human design. Archaeologists, armed with satellite data and ground-penetrating LIDAR technology, began piecing together a lost world. They found raised fields for agriculture, sophisticated irrigation channels, and clusters of settlements linked by straight, wide roads, some running for over 150 miles. These weren't primitive societies, they were master engineers who transformed the Amazon into a managed landscape, shaping the very soil to support vast populations. One of the most startling sights is in modern-day Bolivia, where researchers uncovered the remains of a massive urban center now called the Casarab culture. Here, pyramids and terraces rise above the floodplains, surrounded by concentric rings of canals and reservoirs. The scale suggests a society with centralized planning, possibly even a governing elite. But what's truly mind-blowing is how they thrived in an environment archaeologists once thought too harsh for complex societies. By enriching poor rainforest soil with a nutrient-rich mixture of charcoal, pottery shards, and compost known as terra preta, or black earth, they created fertile grounds that sustained crops for generations. So why did these cities vanish? Clues point to a perfect storm of catastrophes. European diseases that raced ahead of colonists, killing up to 90% of the population, followed by the collapse of trade networks and forced relocations under colonial rule. Without people to maintain their intricate earthworks, the jungle reclaimed the land within decades, burying their legacy under centuries of growth. This discovery forces us to rethink everything we thought we knew. The Amazon wasn't an untouched Eden, it was a managed, almost industrial landscape shaped by human hands, and that raises a haunting question. If millions once lived here, what other civilizations might still lie hidden, waiting for the right technology to reveal them? The more we look, the more we realize how much of our past is still out there, hidden just beneath the surface, rising from the fertile floodplains near modern-day St. Louis stood Cahokia, a metropolis so vast it dwarfed medieval London at its peak. With a population of 20,000 people, its earthen pyramids towered over plazas designed for celestial alignments, while a sprawling network of trade routes connected it to cultures as far away as the Great Lakes and the Gulf of Mexico. Yet by the year 1400, this thriving hub was abandoned, its grand mounds left silent. What could force an entire society to walk away from such a marvel? The answer may lie in Cahokia's own sophistication. At its heart stood Monk's Mound, a colossus of packed earth covering 14 acres larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza's base. Surrounding it, wooden palisades hinted at a society under pressure, with evidence of burned sections suggesting violent conflict. But another clue emerges from tree rings deep in nearby bogs. These ancient growth layers tell a story of prolonged droughts during Cahokia's decline, decades where rains failed and crops withered. Imagine the desperation as stores of maize ran low, as leaders scrambled to maintain order while the land itself turned against them. Then there's the chilling evidence from Mound 72, where excavations revealed mass burials, some showing signs of ritual sacrifice. Were these acts of desperation attempts to appease angry gods as famine tightened its grip? Or did social unrest boil over, with factions turning on each other as resources vanished? Archaeologists now suspect it wasn't one disaster, but a cascade. Climate shifts destabilizing agriculture, triggering wars over dwindling supplies and eroding faith in rulers who could no longer guarantee prosperity. Yet the most haunting question isn't why Cahokia fell, it's where its people went. Unlike the Maya or Romans, no clear descendants carried forward their traditions. Instead, oral histories from neighboring nations speak of migrations, of groups blending into new communities. Some Cahokians may have become the ancestors of today's Osage, Quapaw, or Chickasaw peoples, their stories woven subtly into tribal memories. Others might have scattered into smaller villages, returning to older ways of living. What makes Cahokia's collapse so gripping is how modern it feels. A society pushed to its limits by environmental strain and social fractures sound familiar. Their mounds still stand, grass-covered sentinels warning us that even the mightiest civilizations aren't immune to the tides of history. And perhaps that's their final lesson. Greatness isn't measured by permanence, but by the echoes left behind. Beneath the bustling streets of modern Mexico City lies a relic of unimaginable power, the Templo Mayor, the great pyramid at the heart of the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan. For centuries, it was lost, buried under layers of colonial construction, until workers digging a utility trench in 1978 struck something unexpected. A massive stone disc depicting Coyolxauhqui, the dismembered moon goddess. That chance discovery cracked open a window into one of history's most dramatic sacred spaces, where rituals of life, death, and cosmic balance unfolded in terrifying grandeur. Excavations since then have revealed a trove of chilling artifacts, over 130 ritual caches containing everything from jade masks to the bones of sacrificed eagles, jaguars, and even children. But perhaps the most startling finds are the Tes Ampantli, racks designed to display the skulls of victims. In 2015, archaeologists uncovered a tower of over 600 craniums, many with holes drilled on either side, proof they were once strung together as grisly trophies. These weren't random acts of violence, they were meticulously orchestrated ceremonies meant to sustain the universe itself. The Aztecs believed the gods had sacrificed themselves to create the sun and moon, and humanity owed them a debt paid in blood. During festivals like Panquetzalistli, priests would reenact the myth of Coyolxauhqui's defeat, ascending the temple steps with captives before offering their still-beating hearts to Huitzilopochtli, the sun god. But here's what's fascinating. Forensic analysis shows many victims weren't enemies. Isotope testing on teeth reveals they were fed diets of maize and amaranth for months before death, honored guests unaware they'd been chosen as divine messengers. And the offerings go deeper. In a chamber beneath the temple's fourth layer, workers found a cache of marine life, starfish, coral, even a crocodile symbolizing the watery underworld. Nearby, a jadate figurine wore a headdress of human skin, its back etched with a calendar date marking a solar eclipse. Every object, every sacrifice was a thread in a vast cosmic tapestry, weaving together earth and sky, life and death. Yet the Templo Mayor's darkest secret might be its own destruction. When Cortés arrived in 1519, he described it as a place higher than the Cathedral of Seville, its walls blackened by blood. But Spanish accounts may have exaggerated its brutality to justify conquest. Recent studies suggest the Aztecs saw sacrifice not as cruelty, but as sacred reciprocity, a belief that humanity's survival depended on feeding the gods with the most precious gift, life itself. Today, the temple's ruins force us to confront uncomfortable questions. How do we judge a civilization that viewed violence as divine duty? And what happens when two worldviews, one seeing sacrifice as barbarism, the other as necessity, collide? The stones of Templo Mayor don't just whisper of blood, they speak of a people trying to make sense of their place in an unpredictable universe using the only language they knew. High above the Valley of Mexico, the Pyramid of the Sun dominates the ruins of Teotihuacan, its geometric perfection so precise that even modern architects marvel at its precision. Built around the year 200, this 220-foot colossus was once coated in dazzling stucco and painted blood red, a beacon visible for miles. But here's the twist: despite over a century of excavations, we still don't know who built it. Unlike the Maya or Aztecs, who left detailed records, Teotihuacan's founders remain ghostly figures, their language, origins, and even their name for the city erased by time. Walk down the Avenue of the Dead today, and you'll notice something strange. The murals adorning its temples show no kings, no conquerors, just anonymous priests and deities like the fearsome feathered serpent. No royal tombs have been found beneath the pyramids, only sacrificial offerings, jaguars, eagles, and humans, their hands bound behind them. Some archaeologists argue this points to a radical idea. Teotihuacan might have been governed not by a single ruler, but by councils or priestly factions ruling collectively. Imagine a society where power wasn't hoarded by a pharaoh or emperor, but shared. An experiment in urban democracy millennia before the modern world dreamed of it. Then there's the military mystery. For a city that traded from Guatemala to Wyoming, Teotihuacan shows almost no signs of defensive walls or armories. Its artwork lacks the glorified battle scenes common in Maya or Roman art. Instead, excavations reveal neighborhoods divided by ethnicity: Zapotec merchants from Oaxaca, Maya artisans, even migrants from the Gulf Coast, all living side by side. Could this have been a cosmopolitan utopia, a melting pot where diverse groups coexisted under shared spiritual ideals? Or was its peace enforced by some unseen power, a religious authority so potent that no army was needed? The truth may lie in the city's sudden collapse. Around the year 550, someone set fire to Teotihuacan's temples in what archaeologists call the Rage event. Statues were decapitated, the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent was ritually desecrated, yet there's no evidence of invasion. Instead, it suggests an uprising, citizens turning against their own leaders. Perhaps the system that held Teotihuacan together for centuries became its undoing, its people rejecting the very ideals that built their paradise. Standing atop the Pyramid of the Sun at dawn, watching shadows creep across the valley, you can't help but wonder, was this a city too perfect to last? A place where humanity briefly glimpsed harmony before ambition, or inequality, or some unrecorded crisis shattered the dream. The stones refuse to give up their secrets easily, but that's what makes Teotihuacan's silence so deafening. Chaco Canyon appears as a barren landscape at first glance, a stretch of New Mexico desert where sandstone walls bake under relentless sun. But hidden in these cliffs lies one of ancient America's most sophisticated astronomical laboratories. 1,000 years ago, the ancestral Pueblones didn't just build here, they engineered their entire city to dance with the cosmos. Take Pueblo Bonito, its massive semicircular structure perfectly aligned so that on the summer solstice, sunlight pierces through a narrow doorway, striking a spiral petroglyph on the far wall. This wasn't just artistry, it was a precision calendar etched in stone, marking the year's pivotal moments down to the minute. The real marvel, Chaco's architects didn't stop at one alignment. At Fajada Butte, 3 stone slabs slant against the cliff face like a celestial switch. During equinoxes, a dagger of light slices perfectly between them, bisecting another spiral carving. Even more haunting is the sun dagger's winter solstice display, twin beams of light framing the spiral as if the sun itself is cradling it. But here's what baffles scientists. Achieving this required not just observational genius but advanced geometry. The slabs had to be positioned at exact angles, accounting for the canyon's topography and Earth's axial tilt. How did a culture without written language or metal tools calculate this? Then there's the Great North Road, a 30-mile arrow-straight pathway cutting through the desert, aligned precisely to true north. Modern surveys show its deviation is less than half a degree, a feat requiring knowledge we'd assume impossible without compasses. Some researchers speculate it mirrored the Milky Way's path, turning the entire canyon into a terrestrial echo of the night sky. Others believe it guided ceremonial processions during celestial events, transforming astronomy into a communal experience. So why did this cosmic wisdom fade? Drought likely forced the Pueblones to abandon Chaco around 1150, but their knowledge didn't vanish, it transformed. Oral traditions passed down among Hopi and Zuni elders still reference star cycles and solstice ceremonies. Petroglyphs near modern pueblos show identical spiral motifs, suggesting the legacy endured. Perhaps the true secret of Chaco isn't its precision but its purpose. These weren't just scientific instruments, they were bridges between earth and sky, tools to synchronize human lives with cosmic rhythms we've only begun to rediscover. Stretching across Peru's bone-dry Nazca Desert, the famous geoglyphs, those massive figures of spiders, monkeys, and hummingbirds, have baffled researchers for decades. But while the world marvels at these surface-level enigmas, few realize the real engineering marvel lies beneath them. Hidden under the same parched earth, the Nazca people carved an intricate web of underground aqueducts so precise they still function today. This isn't just ancient art, it's a survival blueprint, a testament to human ingenuity in one of Earth's harshest environments. The system, called puquios, consists of spiral stone wells that tap into subterranean rivers, channeling water through miles of underground tunnels. Unlike surface canals that would evaporate under the desert sun, these hidden passages kept water cool and clean, allowing the Nazca to transform barren land into fertile oases. Some shafts descend over 15 feet, their walls reinforced with river rocks to prevent collapse. But here's what's astonishing. Without metal tools or modern surveying equipment, the Nazca engineered these channels with near mathematical precision, following the natural slope of the land to maintain a steady flow. Why connect them to the geoglyphs? Recent drone surveys reveal something startling. Many lines lead directly to puquio access points, suggesting the glyphs weren't just ritual symbols. They may have been a map, a way to navigate the life-giving water sources beneath the sands. Imagine walking the lines during drought, knowing each spiral marked a hidden well. The hummingbird glyph, for instance, points toward a cluster of puquios in a valley where water was scarcest. Could these drawings have been prayers to the gods and practical guides for survival? The real mystery isn't how they built it, but why the knowledge vanished. When Spanish chroniclers arrived in the 16th century, the puquios were already ancient, their origins lost. Some scholars believe the Nazca's reliance on this system made them vulnerable. A prolonged drought or seismic shift could have disrupted the water tables, collapsing their delicate balance. Others speculate that conquering cultures focused on surface conquests simply forgot the underground wisdom. Today, a handful of puquios still irrigate fields, tended by farmers who have inherited this legacy without fully understanding its roots. Standing at the edge of a spiral well, listening to water whisper through stone carved centuries ago, you realize the Nazca's true masterpiece wasn't the lines we see, it's the ones we don't. A reminder that sometimes the solutions to our greatest challenges lie just beneath our feet, waiting to be uncovered. At the height of their power, the Maya built cities that rivaled anything in the ancient world, soaring temples, grand plazas, and reservoirs capable of sustaining tens of thousands. Yet by the year 900, metropolises like Tikal and Calakmul stood empty, their stone monuments swallowed by vines, their streets silent. For decades, experts blamed warfare or overpopulation, but new evidence from deep beneath lakebeds tells a far more chilling story. Sediment cores drilled from the Patane rainforest reveal layers of history like pages in a book. In deposits dating to the collapse, scientists found something unexpected: traces of titanium, a metal uncommon in Maya land. Its source, volcanic ash carried by winds from eruptions over 1,000 miles away. These weren't minor events, they were catastrophic explosions that dimmed the sun for years, triggering a chain reaction of crop failures. Pollen samples from the same layers show a sudden shift from maize cultivation to drought-resistant weeds, proof that famine had taken hold, but the Maya were no strangers to drought. What made this different? Stalagmites from nearby caves hold the answer. Their growth rings, like tree rings, record rainfall patterns with precision. During the 9th century, they show not just dry spells, but a megadrought, the worst in 2,000 years. Reservoirs in Tikal, engineered to last through typical dry seasons, baked dry under relentless heat. Yet even this doesn't fully explain the abandonment. Another clue comes from the very walls of Calakmul's palaces. Epigraphers studying hieroglyphs found frantic inscriptions near the end, kings boasting of victories while scribes noted dwindling tribute payments. It suggests a desperate cycle, rulers demanding more from starving subjects, sparking revolts that fractured trust in divine kingship. Recent LIDAR scans add another layer, revealing hastily built fortifications around elite districts, as if the wealthy were barricading themselves against their own people. The most haunting discovery, though, lies in the ruins of smaller towns. While great cities like Tikal were abandoned gradually, outposts perished overnight. At La Corona, archaeologists found cooking pots still resting in hearths, tools left mid-craft as if everyone simply walked away. Some researchers argue this points to a final, devastating factor: disease. With trade networks collapsing, isolated communities may have succumbed to epidemics introduced by fleeing refugees. So was it volcanoes, drought, war, or plague that doomed the Maya? The truth is, it was all of them. A civilization that survived centuries of challenges met a perfect storm: environmental catastrophe eroding faith in leaders, who in turn doubled down on control until the system shattered. Yet the Maya didn't vanish. They adapted, moving north to cities like Chichen Itza or blending into smaller villages. Their descendants still thrive today, living proof that collapse isn't an ending. It's a transformation we're only beginning to understand. Long before European colonists set foot in North America, ancient hands were carving into the rocky shores of Lake Superior, extracting something extraordinary: nearly pure copper veins gleaming like fiery threads in the sunlight. Between 4,000 and 1,200 years ago, indigenous peoples mined an estimated 5,000 tons of the metal from Michigan's Upper Peninsula, shaping it into tools, ornaments, and trade goods that circulated across the continent. This wasn't small-scale gathering. These were industrial-scale operations, with pits dug 30 feet deep and trenches stretching hundreds of feet. The scale is staggering: enough copper to forge over 10 million axe heads, yet hardly any of it remains in the region where it was mined. So where did it all go? Archaeologists have uncovered clues scattered like breadcrumbs across North America. In burial mounds along the Mississippi, copper breastplates and headdresses adorned elite burials. At Cahokia, artisans hammered Great Lakes copper into ceremonial ear spools the size of dinner plates. But the most surprising traces appear thousands of miles from the source in Florida's Key Marco site, where rare nuggets were fashioned into intricate fishhooks, and even at Chaco Canyon, where strips of Michigan copper lined ritual offerings. This wasn't just trade, it was a continent-spanning network, with copper acting as both currency and status symbol. The mystery deepens when we examine how this copper was mined. Unlike later European methods involving smelting, ancient miners used thermal shocking, heating rock with fire, then dousing it with water to fracture the stone. They then pried out copper masses with stone tools, some weighing over 3,000 pounds. At Michigan's Isle Royale, pits show evidence of being worked for generations, with tool marks preserving the techniques of forgotten artisans. But here's the puzzle. By the time European settlers arrived, the mines lay abandoned, their existence preserved only in Ojibwe oral histories describing the ancient ones who dug the metal. So why did the mining stop? One theory points to climate shifts. Rising water levels around 1,200 years ago may have flooded key mining sites. Another suggests that the arrival of bow and arrow technology shifted priorities toward more efficient hunting tools, reducing demand for heavy copper blades. But the most tantalizing possibility involves the metal's sacred value. To many indigenous cultures, copper wasn't just functional, it was alive, a gift from underwater spirits. As rituals evolved, perhaps the act of extraction itself became taboo, leaving the remaining copper veins as offerings to the land. Today, modern scientists are uncovering even more secrets. Geochemical fingerprinting confirms that over 80% of pre-Columbian copper artifacts east of the Rockies originated from Michigan. Yet in museum collections, you'll find only fragments. Most was melted down during colonization, erased into coins and cannonballs. The true legacy of these copper kings isn't just in the metal they left behind, but in the connections they forged, proof that long before highways or railroads, this continent thrived with innovation, exchange, and a shared reverence for the Earth's hidden treasures. Beneath the rolling hills of southern Ohio, a series of massive earthworks stretch across the landscape, not random mounds, but precise geometric shapes that seem to pulse with celestial intent. These are the creations of the Hopewell culture, a people who flourished between 200 BC and 500 CE, transforming dirt and clay into an astronomical language we're only beginning to decipher. Take the Great Serpent Mound, its winding coils stretching over 1,300 feet, a shape that aligns with the setting sun during the summer solstice, its open jaws framing the constellation Draco. Or the Newark earthworks, where octagons and circles interlock with mathematical perfection, mirroring the moon's 18.6-year cycle. This wasn't just art, it was a celestial calculator etched into the earth. What's even more remarkable is how the Hopewell achieved this without written records or metal tools. Archaeologists studying the High Bank works discovered that its circular and octagonal enclosures share the exact same dimensions as those at Newark, though they're separated by 60 miles of dense forest. How? The answer lies in their mastery of geometry. Using ropes and wooden stakes, Hopewell surveyors replicated complex shapes across vast distances with near-flawless precision. Some earthworks even encode mathematical constants like pi, with circular embankments measuring 3 times the diameter of their central platforms, a ratio that would have required advanced understanding of spatial relationships. But why go to such lengths? Recent excavations offer a clue. At Mound City, a cluster of 23 burial mounds, archaeologists found copper breastplates and mica cutouts shaped like crescent moons. These weren't mere decorations, they were ritual objects tied to cosmic events. One mound contained the remains of a woman buried with a headdress of meteoric iron beads, material traced to a meteorite that fell in Minnesota. The message is clear. The Hopewell saw themselves as part of a grand celestial dance, their earthworks acting as portals between realms. The greatest mystery, though, isn't how they built these sites, it's why they stopped. Around 500 CE, construction ceased abruptly. Some mounds were ritually sealed, their entrances filled with layered soils of different colors, as if closing a sacred contract. Climate data suggests a period of erratic weather may have disrupted their maize-based agriculture, but there's no evidence of invasion or violence. Instead, the Hopewells seem to have dispersed, their knowledge carried westward by descendants who became the ancestors of today's Shawnee, Miami, and other nations. Traces of their legacy linger in unexpected places. The Osage people's traditional cosmology speaks of a star chart woven into their clan divisions, mirroring constellations the Hopewell may have tracked. Even the layout of some historic Native American villages echoes the octagonal patterns of the earthworks. Though the mounds now stand silent, their builders' understanding of the cosmos wasn't lost. It transformed, woven into oral traditions that still guide some communities today. Walking these sacred geometries at dawn, watching mist rise from their curves, you realize the true secret. These weren't just maps of the sky. They were invitations to look up, to remember, and to see ourselves as part of something infinitely larger. Deep in the cloud forests of Peru's Vilcabamba Mountains, a tangle of vines and moss conceals a secret that eluded even the most determined Spanish conquistadors. Espiritu Pampa, long rumored to be the lost refuge of the last Inca rulers. For centuries, historians debated whether this remote jungle settlement was the legendary Vilcabamba, where the Inca resistance held out for decades after the fall of Cusco. Then, in 2010, archaeologists unearthed something astonishing beneath the roots of a toppled tree. A ceremonial ushnu, a stone platform used by Inca emperors to preside over sacred rituals. This wasn't just any ruins, it was the smoking gun, proving this was the final redoubt of a civilization fighting for survival. walking through Espiritu Pampa today, you'll notice how its layout defies typical Inca design. Instead of the usual grid-like precision, buildings sprawl organically along ridges, their walls lower and less polished than imperial standards. That's because Vilcabamba wasn't built for glory. It was a fortress of necessity, constructed in haste as the Spanish advanced. Yet even here, the Inca's ingenuity shines. Terraces cling to near vertical slopes, camouflaged by foliage, while hidden cisterns collected rainwater to outlast sieges. The most revealing find, a series of narrow, twisting pathways leading to a cluster of round houses structures unlike anything in Cusco. Some scholars believe these were lodgings for the Antisuyo, fierce Amazonian allies who joined the Inca in their last stand. But the real drama lies in the artifacts. Excavations have turned up Spanish-style nails reforged into Inca knives, melted church bells recast as tools, and even fragments of steel armor painstakingly riveted with bronze. These weren't just acts of desperation, they were acts of defiance, a blending of technologies to forge a new resistance. Then there are the more personal traces, ceramic shards bearing the faint fingerprints of their makers, a child's toy llama carved from Quechua wood. These quiet finds humanize a story often reduced to battles and betrayals. The end came in 1572, when Spanish troops finally breached Vilcabamba's defenses, only to find the city burning. The last Inca ruler, Tupac Amaru, had ordered its destruction rather than let it fall intact. Though he was captured and executed in Cusco's main square, the spirit of resistance lived on. Oral histories among the Cuero people speak of survivors melting deeper into the jungle, carrying with them the Cuero, a sacred bundle said to hold the soul of the empire. What makes Espiritu Pampa so haunting isn't just its role as a grave for Inca sovereignty, it's the glimpse it offers of what might have been. Had the Spanish arrived 50 years later, would Vilcabamba have grown into a new imperial capital, adapting to the changing world on its own terms? The stones don't answer, but they whisper this truth. Even in retreat, the Inca refused to vanish. They transformed, leaving echoes in the traditions of modern Andeans who still honor the land their ancestors died defending. In the rugged highlands of western Mexico, the Tarascan civilization mastered a metalworking secret that defies everything we thought we knew about ancient American technology: platinum. Not the glittering gold or silver prized by their Aztec neighbors, but an elusive silvery metal so dense, so stubbornly resistant to heat, that historians long assumed pre-Columbian cultures couldn't possibly manipulate it. Yet hidden in the tombs of Tzintzuntzan, archaeologists have unearthed artifacts that rewrite history: intricate nose rings, ceremonial tweezers, even tiny bells, all crafted from platinum-gold alloys, a feat European metallurgists wouldn't achieve for centuries. The mystery begins with sourcing. Unlike gold nuggets, platinum rarely appears in pure, workable form in nature, especially in the Americas. But the Tarascans, it seems, discovered a unique deposit along the rivers of modern-day Michoacán, where platinum had eroded into grains as fine as sand. Here's where their ingenuity shines. While Europeans struggled with platinum's sky-high melting point over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, the Tarascans sidestepped the problem entirely. They mixed platinum dust with gold dust, then heated the blend just enough for the gold to melt, acting as a natural glue that bonded the platinum particles. The result, a dazzling material stronger than pure gold, with a distinctive violet sheen, what scholars now call purple gold. But why platinum? The answer might lie in the metal's celestial connections. To the Tarascans, gold symbolized the sun, while silver represented the moon. Platinum, with its otherworldly luster, may have embodied the stars, perfect for ritual objects bridging earth and sky. One ceremonial ornament, recovered from Lake Pátzcuaro, depicts a hummingbird mid-flight, its wings thin as paper yet remarkably durable. Modern metallurgists who analyzed it were stunned. The alloy's microstructure shows signs of deliberate annealing, a process of controlled heating and cooling that strengthens metal. a technique the Tarascans perfected through trial and error, centuries before it was documented elsewhere. The real shock came when researchers dated these artifacts. Some predate European contact by at least 200 years, disproving early theories that the Tarascans learned platinum working from Spanish artisans. Even more astonishing is what happened after the conquest. Spanish records mention indigenous metalsmiths being forced to melt down sacred objects, yet not a single mention of platinum appears in their inventories. Had the Tarascans hidden their knowledge, or did the Spanish simply not recognize what they were seeing? Either way, the tradition vanished almost overnight, leaving only scattered artifacts as whispers of a technology lost to time. Today, these platinum relics pose a tantalizing question. If the Tarascans could master such an advanced craft without iron tools or written records, what other metallurgical secrets might have flourished and disappeared across the Americas? Standing in the shadow of Tzintzuntzan's Yakutas, those iconic circular pyramids, you can't help but wonder how much brilliance was swallowed by history, waiting for the right shovels to bring it back to light. Standing like silent sentinels in the humid lowlands of Mexico's Gulf Coast, the Olmec colossal heads have puzzled researchers since their discovery. Carved from basalt boulders weighing up to 20 tons, these imposing sculptures, some towering 9 feet tall, depict faces with broad noses, full lips, and helmets that scholars believe represent ballgame gear or elite headdresses. But one detail has sparked debate for decades: their striking resemblance to certain African facial features. Could these heads, created over 3,000 years ago, hint at transatlantic contact long before Columbus? The theory gained traction in the 1940s when anthropologist José Melgar, who documented the first known head at Tres Zapotes, noted its Ethiopian characteristics. Later, scholars like Ivan van Sertima proposed that West African voyagers might have reached the Americas during the Olmec era, influencing Mesoamerican art and culture. Proponents point to the head's pronounced cheekbones and wide noses, arguing they're too distinct from later indigenous artwork to be coincidental. Some even cite ancient Egyptian-style boat carvings or shared pyramid building techniques as potential evidence of cross-cultural exchange. Mainstream archaeology, however, pushes back hard. Genetic studies of pre-Columbian populations show no markers of African ancestry in the Americas before the transatlantic slave trade. Furthermore, the basalt used for the heads matches local quarries, proving the Olmec-sourced materials, and by extension, artistic inspiration from their own backyard. The African features argument also overlooks a key fact. Indigenous American populations exhibit natural diversity in facial structure, including broad noses and full lips, traits still visible among modern communities like the Mix and Zapotec. Perhaps the most compelling counterpoint lies in the head's context. Excavations at Olmec sites like La Venta reveal that these sculptures weren't standalone oddities. They were part of a broader artistic tradition. Nearby stone altars and stelae depict similar faces, often alongside icons like jaguars and maize gods, deeply rooted in Mesoamerican cosmology. Many heads also bear glyphs or headdress motifs linking them to specific rulers, suggesting they're portraits of Olmec elites, not foreign visitors. So why does this theory persist? Partly because it taps into broader questions about how we interpret the past. The idea of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact challenges traditional narratives, offering an alluring what-if scenario. But while science dismisses the African connection, the head's real mystery is no less fascinating. How did the Olmec, lacking metal tools or wheels, transport these monoliths across 50 miles of swamps and forests? The answer likely involves log rollers, river rafts, and staggering communal effort, proof that ingenuity, not outside influence, built Mesoamerica's first great civilization. In the end, the colossal heads aren't enigmas because they resemble anyone, they're enigmatic because they represent a culture that defies expectation. A people who carved their legacy in stone, then vanished, leaving only these granite giants to whisper their stories. And perhaps that's the most compelling secret of all. Not who they might have been influenced by, but how they achieved so much so early, entirely on their own terms. Deep in the heart of the Amazon, where the soil is typically so nutrient-poor that farmers struggle to grow crops without heavy fertilizers, there exist mysterious patches of land so fertile they've been coveted for centuries. This isn't just good dirt, it's terra preta, or black earth, a man-made supersoil created by ancient civilizations over 2,000 years ago. Unlike the thin, acidic soil surrounding it, terra preta is dark, crumbly, and packed with nutrients, capable of regenerating itself and remaining productive year after year without modern inputs. The secret to its resilience, a recipe lost to time, blending charcoal, broken pottery, compost, and even fish bones into a blend that modern science still struggles to replicate. What's astonishing isn't just the soil's fertility, it's the scale. Satellite imagery reveals these patches aren't rare flukes. They form vast networks, some covering hundreds of acres, often clustered around the sites of ancient settlements. Archaeologists now believe terra preta wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate technology engineered by pre-Columbian societies to sustain populations far larger than we ever imagined possible in the rainforest. At sites like the Kasarab culture's urban centers, layers of this black earth run several feet deep, proof that generations nurtured the land with meticulous care. Modern scientists analyzing terra preta have uncovered even more surprises. The charcoal, or biochar, within it acts like a microbial coral reef, creating a porous habitat for beneficial bacteria and fungi that lock nutrients in place. Pottery shards, once dismissed as trash, actually help aerate the soil and retain moisture. Even more remarkable, this soil isn't static. Unlike modern fertilizers, which leach away after a few seasons, terra preta grows richer over time. Farmers in the Amazon today still seek it out, knowing crops planted in these ancient zones yield up to 3 times more than in adjacent areas. Yet the greatest mystery isn't how it works, it's why the knowledge to create it vanished. When European colonizers arrived, they documented indigenous groups using the soil but didn't record the techniques behind it. Some researchers speculate that the catastrophic population decline from disease erased the specialists who mastered this craft. Others suggest the methods were so labor-intensive, requiring precise burns at low temperatures and careful layering of organic waste, that surviving communities couldn't sustain them under colonial disruption. Today, terra preta isn't just a relic, it's a beacon. Climate scientists see it as a potential key to sustainable agriculture, a way to sequester carbon in soil while boosting food security. Startups are racing to reverse engineer it, but no one has perfectly recreated the ancient formula. Walking through an untouched patch of terra preta, you can't help but feel the weight of that irony. In our race for innovation, we're chasing a technology that thrived here millennia ago, left behind by people who understood the land in ways we're only beginning to grasp. High in the mist-shrouded peaks of northern Peru, the Chachapoya people carved their legacy into sheer cliffs and cloud forests, a civilization so fierce, even the mighty Inca struggled to conquer them. Known as the warriors of the clouds, their stone citadels cling to impossible heights, like Cuelap, a fortress city with walls towering 60 feet tall, built atop a mountain ridge 9,000 feet above sea level. What makes these ruins truly extraordinary isn't just their scale, but their defiance of logic. How did a culture with no known writing system or metal tools engineer such marvels? And why do Spanish chronicles describe them as tall, light-skinned people, a detail that's fueled wild speculation for centuries? Modern archaeology paints a more nuanced picture. Excavations at Gran Pajatain, another Chachapoya stronghold, reveal round houses adorned with intricate mosaics of birds and serpents, their designs echoing myths of a people who believed they descended from celestial beings. Their mummies, carefully wrapped in fetal positions and tucked into cliffside tombs, show something even more telling. many had fairer complexions than their Andean neighbors, likely due to generations of isolation in the high cloud forests. But this wasn't some lost European colony. Genetic studies confirm their roots were purely indigenous. Their distinct appearance probably arose from adaptation to their fog-veiled environment, where UV radiation was lower than in sun-baked valleys below. The real genius of the Chachapoya lies in their architecture. At Rivache, multicolored burial houses perch on limestone ledges, accessible only by rope ladders or narrow ledges. These weren't just tombs, they were statements. By placing their dead where no enemy could reach them, they turned mortality into a weapon of psychological warfare. Even their agricultural terraces were acts of defiance, carved into slopes so steep, modern engineers struggle to understand how they prevented erosion. Then there's the mystery of their downfall. After resisting the Inca for decades, the Chachapoya were finally subdued only to ally with Spanish conquistadors in a doomed bid for vengeance. But by the late 16th century, their cities stood empty. Disease likely played a role, but so did something darker. Spanish records mention forced relocations, entire communities uprooted to break their connection to the land. Today, their descendants live on, preserving fragments of Chachapoya traditions in songs and textiles, whispers of a people who refused to vanish, even when their stone cities fell silent. Standing atop Cuelap's walls, watching clouds swallow the valleys below, you realize the Chachapoya's greatest secret wasn't their origins or their skin color. It was their ability to thrive where no one else dared, building kingdoms in the sky, then daring the world to find them. High in the Andes, where thin air makes fire burn blue and shadows stretch unnaturally long, the ancient temple complex of Chavín de Huanta guards one of archaeology's most tantalizing riddles. Beneath its labyrinthine corridors, among carvings of jaguar gods and serpent priests, explorers discovered something utterly unexpected: dozens of thin copper plaques, some no larger than a hand, etched with intricate patterns of dots, lines, and spirals. At first glance, they resemble mere decorations, but when researchers tried to align them under sunlight, the truth became chillingly clear. These weren't random engravings. They were code. The plaques, dating back over 2,000 years, share eerie similarities with later Inca quipus knotted cord records used for accounting, but with a crucial difference. Where quipus used colored strings, these metal sheets rely on precise perforations, their holes arranged in grids that mirror celestial patterns. Some scholars believe they're ritual calendars, marking solstices or eclipse cycles critical to Chavín's agricultural rites. Others argue the dots represent syllabic writing, a lost language frozen in metal. The most radical theory that these were sound maps. When struck with a mallet, certain plaques emit resonant frequencies matching the temple's underground channels, a literal vibration-based communication system. What makes this mystery even more compelling is the copper itself. Metallurgical analysis reveals it wasn't local. The ore came from mines over 300 miles away, smelted with a technique involving arsenic bronze, a dangerous process known to induce hallucinations in metalworkers. Were these plaques sacred objects, their creation entwined with shamanic visions? Their placement offers clues. Many were found near the temple's oracle room, where priests likely inhaled hallucinogenic Anadenanthera snuff before chanting through stone ducts that distorted their voices into godlike echoes. Yet the greatest enigma isn't their purpose, it's their silence. Despite decades of study, no one has cracked the plaques' patterns. Modern cryptographers using AI pattern recognition hit dead ends. The sequences resist known mathematical structures. Some dots align with stars in the Pleiades cluster, but others defy explanation. The closest analog might be the Phaistos disk of Crete, another undeciphered metal artifact separated by an ocean and millennia. Standing in Chavín's dimly lit galleries, running fingers over these cold metal puzzles, you sense the weight of their secrecy. Whoever crafted them wielded knowledge we've yet to reclaim, a language of metal and memory waiting for the right mind to listen. Until then, the copper scrolls keep their counsel, whispering to the gods in a code mortals can't comprehend. Beneath the swirling currents of the Gulf of Mexico, where sunlight barely penetrates the murky depths, something extraordinary lurks on the ocean floor, a series of massive, geometric shapes that defy natural explanation. In 2012, a team of marine archaeologists scanning the Mississippi Delta with advanced multi-beam sonar stumbled upon an anomaly. Rising from the seabed, roughly 60 feet below the surface, were structures with near-perfect triangular slopes and flat summits, their symmetry too precise to be the work of random erosion. The largest measures over 300 feet wide at its base, its edges aligned almost exactly with the cardinal directions. Could these be the remnants of an ancient civilization, swallowed by rising seas millennia ago? The implications are staggering. If these are indeed human-made pyramids, they predate any known coastal settlements in the region by thousands of years. Geological surveys confirm the area was dry land during the last ice age, when sea levels were nearly 400 feet lower. Around 10,000 years ago, as glaciers melted and oceans rose, this entire stretch of the Gulf coastline would have vanished underwater, taking any structures with it. That timeline matches the controversial theories of researchers like Dr. Robert Ballard, who have long argued that the most significant archaeological sites from early human history may lie submerged on continental shelves, hidden by millennia of sediment and salt water. But what civilization could have built them? The oldest confirmed pyramids in the Americas, like those at Caral in Peru, date back only 5,000 years. These Gulf structures, if artificial, would be twice as ancient. Some researchers speculate they could be the work of a seafaring culture related to the Clovis people, whose distinctive spear points have been found as far south as Mexico. Others point to eerie parallels with underwater ruins off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, where similar stepped formations have sparked debate since the 1980s. Diving expeditions to the site have yielded tantalizing clues. Scattered around the base of the largest structure, sonar picked up rectangular blocks that appear cut and stacked, not randomly scattered. One particularly puzzling artifact is a smooth, circular stone with evenly spaced grooves, resembling an anchor or rudimentary gear. Yet without physical excavation, a costly and complex endeavor at such depths, definitive proof remains elusive. The Gulf's strong currents and sediment-choked waters make visibility nearly zero, leaving robots with specialized sensors as the only viable explorers. Skeptics argue these formations could be unusual but natural sandstone outcrops shaped by millennia of underwater erosion. They cite examples like the so-called Bimini Road in the Bahamas, once thought to be a man-made causeway but later identified as a rare geological formation. Yet even critics admit the Mississippi structures warrant closer study. Unlike Bimini's uniform blocks, these formations display multi-tier designs and angular corners that rarely occur without human intervention. The most compelling evidence might lie in local indigenous oral histories. Choctaw and Chickasaw traditions speak of a great flood that swallowed their ancestors' coastal homelands, describing houses of stone that sank beneath the waves. Could these stories be distorted memories of actual events? If so, the implications rewrite our understanding of early North American societies, not as nomadic hunter-gatherers, but as builders capable of monumental architecture on par with later Maya or Aztec achievements. For now, the underwater pyramids remain one of archaeology's greatest what-ifs. But with advancing technology like autonomous submersibles and AI-assisted sonar mapping, the truth may surface sooner than we think. Until then, they loom in the darkness, silent sentinels guarding secrets from a time when the shoreline was farther, the world younger, and human ambition perhaps far grander than we ever imagined. The Aztecs spoke of the Toltecs with reverence, a golden age of wise rulers, master craftsmen, and divine knowledge. Their legends describe Tolan, the Toltec capital, as a paradise where palaces shimmered with turquoise and gold, where artisans could shape feathers into lifelike flowers and where the god King Quetzalcoatl himself once ruled. But dig deeper and cracks appear in this glorious narrative. Recent scholarship reveals a startling possibility. Much of what we know about the Toltecs might be an elaborate fabrication crafted by Aztec rulers to legitimize their own power. Take the so-called Toltec feats. The Aztecs boasted about inheriting jade mosaics so intricate they seemed magical architectural techniques that defied logic. Archaeologists working at Chala, the site most commonly linked to the Toltecs, have found evidence of skilled craftsmanship, but nothing matching the Aztec descriptions. The famed feather working attributed to the Toltecs, it actually peaked centuries after Chala's decline during the Aztec Empire's height. Even Quetzalcoatl's connection to the Toltecs is murky. Early carvings at Teotihuacan depict the feathered serpent centuries before Chala existed. Why would the Aztecs rewrite history? The answer lies in political theater. When the Aztecs rose to power in the 1400s, they were upstarts, brutal conquerors lacking noble lineage. By claiming descent from the wise, artistic Toltecs, they painted themselves as rightful heirs to a prestigious legacy. Spanish chronicler Diego Durán recorded Aztec nobles proudly tracing their ancestry to Tolan's rulers, a lineage modern DNA testing can't verify. Meanwhile, excavations at Chala reveal a city far rougher than the Aztec tales: fortified walls, evidence of mass sacrifices, and signs of sudden collapse. Not exactly the peaceful utopia described in Aztec lore. The most damning evidence comes from the Aztecs' own actions. After conquering rival cities, they often erected monuments proving Toltec heritage. Their carvings discovered oddly soon after conquest. At Tenochtitlan's Templo Mayor, builders strategically placed recycled Toltec-style sculptures where crowds would see them, subtly reinforcing the connection. Even the legendary Quetzalcoatl's exile from Tolan, a story where the god-king vows to return, seems tailor-made to prophecy. Some scholars argue the Aztecs cast themselves as Quetzalcoatl's successors, using the myth to justify their expansion. Yet the truth may be more layered than outright lies. The Aztecs likely absorbed fragments of real Toltec history, embellishing them into propaganda. At Chala, archaeologists have found traces of wide trade networks and innovations in obsidian tools, achievements the Aztecs may have exaggerated to serve their narrative. Even the name Toltec itself is revealing. In Nahuatl, it simply means artisan. Could the Aztecs have lumped together various skilled cultures under one glorified label? The irony: in bending the Toltecs' legacy to their will, the Aztecs ensured their predecessors would never be seen clearly. Today, separating fact from Aztec fabrication is like untangling a knot tied 5 centuries ago. Every artifact, every carving comes with a question: is this truly Toltec, or just what the Aztecs wanted us to believe? One thing's certain: history isn't just written by the victors. Sometimes it's invented by them. When Ferdinand Magellan's exhausted fleet limped into the southern reaches of Patagonia in 1520, his chronicler Antonio Pigafetta recorded something extraordinary: a towering indigenous man dancing on the shore, naked despite the biting cold, his head reaching the chests of the Spaniards' tallest sailors. By the time the story reached Europe, these Patagons had grown into legendary giants, some allegedly standing 10 feet tall. For centuries, explorers returned with wilder accounts: footprints 18 inches long, graves containing femur bones that dwarfed those of average humans, even rumors of a hidden kingdom where these colossal people still roamed. But how much truth lies beneath these tales? Modern science is finally separating myth from reality. Recent genetic studies of the Selknam and Arnaikang peoples, the primary indigenous groups of Patagonia, reveal something fascinating. While most averaged around 5'6", certain lineages carried mutations in genes linked to pituitary gland function, potentially causing isolated cases of gigantism. One burial site excavated in Chile in 2015 contained a skeleton measuring roughly 6'6", nearly a foot taller than the European average at the time. That's no 10-foot giant, but it's enough to explain exaggerated reports from undersized sailors who rarely topped 5'5". Add in the optical illusion of Patagonia's vast, treeless plains, where distant figures loom larger against the horizon, and the legend starts to make sense. Yet the mystery deepens when we examine early European motivations. Magellan's voyage was funded by investors expecting riches. Tales of giants guaranteed book sales and future expeditions. Later, the British Admiralty even issued instructions to captains: bring home a Patagonian giant, dead or alive. Some historians argue this created a perverse incentive. In 1767, the crew of the Dolphin allegedly shot 2 9-foot-tall natives, preserving their bones as proof, only for those remains to vanish en route to London. Conveniently, their captain's published journal became a bestseller. The most compelling evidence against the giants, though, comes from indigenous oral histories. Selknam elders described their ancestors as tall, but not unnatural, with exceptional height reserved for revered shamans who wore elevated stilts during ceremonies. Spanish accounts from the 1500s mention seeing wooden legs among tribal artifacts, possibly explaining some giant sightings, as for those massive graves. Modern archaeologists attribute them to stacked burials or misidentified megafauna bones, like those of the extinct Mylodon, a giant ground sloth whose remains litter Patagonian caves. So were the Patagonian giants pure fiction? Not entirely. Like all enduring legends, they're a tapestry woven from fragments of truth, cultural misunderstandings, and the human love for a fantastical story. What's undeniable is the real tragedy beneath the myth: the near-total annihilation of the Selknam and Arnaikang peoples by European diseases and ranchers in the 1800s. Their true history, not the tall tales, deserves to be remembered. Standing in the windswept plains today, you realize the real giants were the cultures that thrived here against all odds, even if they didn't scrape the clouds. In the arid coastal deserts of ancient Peru, the Moch people left behind a legacy that still makes archaeologists blush. Thousands of ceramic vessels depicting every imaginable act of human intimacy, from tender embraces to shockingly explicit scenes that wouldn't be out of place in a modern adult film. These weren't hidden away in secret chambers or buried discreetly. They were mass-produced, often placed in tombs as grave goods or used in daily rituals, suggesting sexuality wasn't taboo for the Moch, but a sacred part of life's fabric. What's truly groundbreaking about these so-called sex pots isn't just their explicitness, it's what they reveal about Moch society. Unlike the repressed Victorian-era interpretations forced on them by early archaeologists, these ceramics showcase a culture where sexuality was intertwined with spirituality, agriculture, and even politics. Take the famous burial theme vessels where skeletons engage in acts of intimacy. Far from being morbid, these likely symbolized rebirth, echoing the way seeds die in the earth to bring forth new life, a metaphor for the cyclical nature of existence in a civilization dependent on farming. Even more revealing are the vessels depicting third-gender individuals, their anatomical features and clothing blending masculine and feminine traits. These figures often appear in positions of power or ritual significance, holding cups or staffs of authority. Some scholars argue the Moch recognized a non-binary gender category centuries before modern terminology existed. Other ceramics show same-sex couples, challenging the assumption that ancient cultures universally condemned such relationships. But why portray these themes on pottery? The answer might lie in the Moch's belief in balance. Their artwork often pairs opposites, life and death, sky and earth, suggesting sexuality was another force to be harmonized. Some vessels even depict deities in erotic poses, implying unions between humans and gods could be literal as well as symbolic. The real mystery is why this openness vanished. Later cultures like the Inca were far more conservative, leading some to speculate that Spanish chroniclers, who melted down indecent gold artifacts, may have destroyed similar March metalwork. Today, these ceramic survivors force us to confront our own biases. What we label as pornography, they may have seen as prayer. Beneath the sun-baked cliffs of the American Southwest, where the ancestral Pueblones, often called the Anasazi, built their intricate cliff dwellings, archaeologists have uncovered bones that tell a story far darker than the romanticized image of these ancient people. In several sites across the Four Corners region, human remains show unmistakable signs of butchering, cut marks matching those found on animal bones, fractures consistent with marrow extraction, and even evidence of cooking. These aren't isolated cases. At one particularly grim site, Cowboy Wash in Colorado, researchers found a pit containing the disarticulated remains of at least 7 individuals, their bones broken and scattered among cooking pots still stained with human protein residue. The question isn't just whether cannibalism occurred, it's why. The most compelling explanation ties these gruesome acts to desperation. Tree ring data from the periods when these events occurred, particularly the late 11th and 12th centuries, reveal prolonged droughts so severe they'd have withered crops and emptied stores of maize. In a culture where food was already scarce, survival may have demanded unthinkable choices. Yet there's a chilling alternative. Some scholars argue this wasn't subsistence cannibalism, but ritual violence. At Sacred Ridge, another Colorado site, the bones of 33 people showed signs of systematic dismemberment. Many were children, and the brutality suggests something beyond hunger, perhaps warfare, punishment, or even ceremonies meant to terrify enemies. The presence of pot polish on some bones caused by stirring them in ceramic vessels hints at deliberate preparation rather than hasty consumption. Then there's the cultural taboo. Modern Pueblo peoples, descendants of the ancestral Pueblones, vehemently reject the cannibalism theory, viewing it as a harmful stereotype imposed by outsiders. They point to alternative explanations like violent raids or funerary practices misunderstood by archaeologists. Some oral traditions speak of witch purges, where suspected sorcerers were killed and their bones desecrated to prevent spiritual contamination. Could these remains reflect such events rather than widespread cannibalism? The truth may lie somewhere in between. Chemical analysis of cooking pots from Cowboy Wash detected traces of datura, a potent hallucinogenic plant used in southwestern rituals. If consumed, it could induce visions or psychosis. Imagine a community gripped by famine-induced delirium, where the line between sacred act and survival tactic blurred in the throes of desperation. Standing in the ruins of Cliff Palace at Mesa Verde, where ancestors once watched the skies for rain that never came, the weight of these discoveries settles heavily. Whether driven by hunger, fear, or belief, the bones force us to confront a difficult truth. Even the most sophisticated cultures can fracture when pushed to the edge. And perhaps that's the most unsettling secret of all, not that the ancestral Pueblones might have practiced cannibalism, but how easily circumstance can unravel the fabric of what we call civilization. For centuries, scholars believed Mesoamerican writing began with the Olmecs around 900 BC, until archaeologists digging in a quiet valley of Oaxaca unearthed stones that shattered that timeline. In the 1930s, at the Zapotec site of Monte Albon, researchers discovered over 300 carved slabs depicting disembodied heads, glyph-like symbols, and what appear to be early numerals. These weren't random doodles, dated to around 500 BC, centuries before the Olmecs' supposed first writing. They tell a story of a society already grappling with complex record-keeping. But here's where it gets even more startling. Some glyphs, like the unmistakable flaming eye, reappear in later Zapotec texts, proving this wasn't a false start. It was a system. The real bombshell came in the 1970s when excavations at San Jose Mogote, a Zapotec village predating Monte Albon, revealed a ceramic fragment incised with symbols resembling later calendar glyphs. Radiocarbon dating placed it around 600 BC, older than any confirmed Olmec writing. This tiny shard, no larger than a palm, suggests the Zapotec weren't just borrowing from neighboring cultures. They were innovators, developing their own script independently. What does this proto-writing reveal? Many slabs depict heads with closed eyes, likely slain enemies, alongside inverted glyphs reading hill or earth, possibly marking conquered territories. Others show numerals in a bar and dot system identical to the Mayas' later method, proving this mathematical language wasn't invented farther south, but the most tantalizing clue lies in the sequencing. Certain glyphs repeat in consistent orders, hinting at phonetic elements. Imagine a scribe testing symbols that would one day evolve into full literacy, like a child sounding out letters before forming words. Critics argue these carvings lack syntax, true writing's defining trait, yet compare them to early Sumerian tokens or Egyptian hieroglyphs before they standardized. All writing systems begin as fragmented attempts to fix thought into form. The Zapotec's real breakthrough wasn't perfection, it was the idea that marks could hold meaning beyond pictures. Why does this rewrite history? Because it challenges the mother culture theory that the Olmec birthed all Mesoamerican advancements. If the Zapotec were developing writing simultaneously, or even earlier, it paints a far richer picture. Multiple cultures innovating in parallel, trading ideas across valleys and volcanoes. Their glyphs may have faded, but their legacy pulses in every Maya codex and Aztec ledger that followed. Sometimes history's most revolutionary ideas don't arrive with fanfare. They whisper, etched quietly in stone, waiting centuries for someone to listen. Most empires collapse in chaos, burned cities, shattered monuments, desperate flight. But the Wari did something far more deliberate. Around the year 1000, at the height of their power, they began quietly abandoning their Andean citadels with eerie precision. At Piquilacta, a sprawling administrative center near modern-day Cusco, archaeologists found storehouses still packed with textiles and pottery, their contents neatly stacked as if awaiting distribution. In the streets, not a single skeleton or shattered weapon hinted at violence. Instead, doorways were sealed with care and ceremonial plazas swept clean. This wasn't destruction, it was a departure. What makes the Wari's exit so extraordinary is the scale of their foresight. Across their empire, stretching from Peru's highlands to its arid coast, they replicated this ghost town phenomenon. At Cerro Ball, a cliffside brewery still held giant vats of chicha, a fermented corn drink, left untouched yet undrunk. Recent excavations reveal something even more astonishing. Roads leading away from these cities show signs of coordinated movement, not panicked flight, but organized caravans. Soil samples tell part of the story. A severe drought gripped the region during the Wari's decline, crippling their terraced farms, but climate alone doesn't explain their response. Unlike other cultures that fought over dwindling resources, the Wari seemed to have a plan. The key might lie in their unique governance. Unlike the top-down rule of the Inca, the Wari Empire functioned more like a federation, with semi-independent provinces linked by shared ideology rather than brute force. When crisis came, this decentralized structure may have allowed for orderly retreat. Some researchers believe local leaders were given months, perhaps years, to prepare, dismantling what couldn't be carried while preserving sacred knowledge. At the site of Honco Pampa, scientists uncovered a ritual platform where Wari priests deliberately smashed ceremonial vessels in a patterned sequence, suggesting a final, symbolic severing from the land. Where did they go? Genetic studies offer tantalizing clues. Modern Quechua communities in the Ayacucho region carry elevated levels of Wari-associated DNA, implying large-scale integration rather than dispersal. Oral histories from the area speak of teachers from the highlands who arrived during a time of drought, introducing new agricultural techniques. The most compelling evidence comes from the Wari's own legacy. Many of their innovations, terrace farming, highway systems, even artistic motifs, reappeared centuries later in the Inca Empire. It's as if the wary didn't vanish, they went underground, seeding the future while letting their cities sleep. Standing in the ruins of Picolacta, where empty windows frame the same mountains the wary once surveyed, their choice feels less like surrender than strategy. They understood something rare in history. Sometimes survival doesn't mean holding ground, but knowing when to dissolve, like rain into earth, trusting the land to remember them. In the shadowy world of antiquities, few objects have sparked as much mystery or outright fabrication as the infamous crystal skulls. Marketed as relics of lost civilizations like the Maya or Aztec, these eerie, translucent carvings became the darlings of occult enthusiasts and Hollywood producers, with claims they possessed supernatural powers or encoded ancient wisdom. But here's the truth that rarely makes the spotlight. Every single one of these so-called artifacts was manufactured in the 19th century, not by Mesoamerican hands, but by European workshops capitalizing on a booming market for the exotic. The smoking gun microscopic analysis. When researchers examined the most famous skulls like the British Museum's specimen and the Smithsonian's Mitchell Hedges skull, they found telltale marks of modern rotary tools. The precision grooves and symmetrical drill holes were impossible to achieve with pre-Columbian technology, which relied on stone and bone tools paired with abrasive sand. Even the quartz crystal itself betrayed the fraud. The type used in these skulls, Brazilian rock crystal, wasn't traded in Mesoamerica before Columbus. Yet the skulls' backstories were nothing short of cinematic. One was discovered by a daughter of a British adventurer in Belize in the 1920s, while another allegedly emerged from a Mayan temple with no credible witnesses. The real irony, the true history of these fakes is more fascinating than the myths. Most were crafted in Idar Oberstein, Germany, a town famed for its lapidary workshops. Skilled artisans, using imported Brazilian crystal and newly developed jewelers' wheels, churned out these curiosities to feed Victorian-era obsession with the mystical East and Americas. Wealthy collectors, eager to display primitive treasures alongside their Egyptian mummies and Greek vases, paid handsomely for these ancient marvels. The skulls weren't just hoaxes, they were colonial trophies, reflections of an era that romanticized conquest while misunderstanding the very cultures it plundered. But why do the legends persist? Partly because we want them to. The skulls tap into a deep human craving for connection to lost worlds, for objects that defy explanation. Museums hesitated to debunk their own acquisitions for decades, and New Age movements amplified their allure, attributing them with healing energies or alien origins. Even today, some insist that undiscovered skulls might still be authentic, despite zero archaeological evidence of such objects in pre-Columbian digs. The crystal skull's greatest secret isn't supernatural, it's psychological. They reveal how easily history gets rewritten by desire, how a well-carved piece of quartz can become a mirror reflecting our own fantasies back at us. And perhaps that's the most valuable lesson of all. Sometimes the most powerful artifacts aren't those that hold ancient truths, but those that expose the stories we're desperate to believe. Deep in the jungles of Patain, where the roots of ancient ceiba trees twist around forgotten temples, a technological revolution is rewriting the story of the Maya. In just the last 5 years, LIDAR, that laser mapping tool piercing through centuries of overgrowth, has revealed something astonishing. Entire cities where textbooks once showed empty wilderness. Take the recent survey near Tikal, where scans unveiled over 60,000 previously unknown structures, houses, roads, even reservoirs hidden beneath the canopy. This wasn't just a city, it was a sprawling metropolis, its population likely 3 to 4 times larger than historians ever estimated. But the real shocker lies in the infrastructure. Those famous Maya causeways known as Sacbiob, LIDAR shows they weren't just ceremonial pathways, they connected a vast network of settlements, some running for over 100 miles in near-perfect straight lines. Even more impressive are the hydraulic systems. Around Nochtun, researchers discovered tiered reservoirs with intricate filtration beds lined with zeolite crystals, a volcanic mineral that purifies water by trapping bacteria. This wasn't just advanced engineering, it was public health on a scale we didn't think possible for the classic Maya period. Then there's the bombshell from Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. LIDAR revealed a previously unknown mega site near Calakmul, with pyramids so overgrown they'd escaped ground surveys for centuries. What stunned archaeologists wasn't just its size, but its layout, a series of concentric rings radiating from a central acropolis, suggesting a highly organized urban plan. Even more intriguing, the scans showed raised agricultural fields stretching for miles, interspersed with residential zones. This wasn't the slash-and-burn society of old textbooks. It was a sophisticated agro-urban landscape, capable of sustaining populations denser than medieval Paris. Perhaps the most humbling discovery came from the Mirador Basin. Beneath what was thought to be a cluster of minor settlements, LIDAR exposed a sprawling pre-classic metropolis dating back to 600 BC, centuries before Maya civilization was supposed to have peaked. Its crown jewel, a massive pyramid complex, Danta, with a volume rivaling Egypt's Great Pyramid, yet built without metal tools or beasts of burden. The scans also revealed something eerie. The city's abrupt abandonment coincided with a layer of ash in nearby lake beds, hinting at a volcanic catastrophe that may have triggered the Mayas' shift northward. What these lasers are revealing isn't just lost buildings, it's a complete reimagining of Maya society. Far from isolated city-states, they were a hyper-connected civilization with highways, aqueducts, and urban planning that rivals modern cities. And with each new flyover, the jungle yields more secrets, whispering a truth we're only beginning to grasp. The past isn't nearly as buried as we thought. What these 25 secrets reveal isn't just a collection of isolated mysteries, it's a radical rewriting of the America's ancient past. Every lost city, every artifact, every whispered legend forces us to peel back layers of assumptions and confront a history far richer, far more ingenious, and far more interconnected than textbooks ever suggested. The Hopewell's celestial earthworks, the Wherry's orchestrated retreat, the Tarascon's platinum mastery, these aren't footnotes. They're proof that civilizations across these continents weren't just surviving, they were innovating, trading, and dreaming on scales we're only beginning to measure. Take the Amazon's sprawling urban networks or the copper highways of the Great Lakes. For centuries, we pictured scattered tribes and simple villages. Now we see continent-spanning trade routes, managed ecosystems, and engineering so advanced it rivals Rome. And what about the Moche's sacred ceramics or Chavin's copper codes? These cultures weren't just ahead of their time, they were asking questions about identity, spirituality, and power that still resonate today. Even the so-called failures, like Cahokia's collapse or the Maya's drought-driven exodus, aren't endings. They're lessons in resilience, blueprints for how societies transform under pressure. The real magic lies in how these pieces fit together. The Inca's refuge at Espiritu Pampa echoes the Wherry's strategic dispersal. The Nazca's subterranean aqueducts mirror the ancestral Pueblo's skyward cities. From the Great Serpent Mound to the white stone gods of Honduras, these secrets whisper a shared truth. The Americas were never a blank canvas waiting for European brushes. They were a kaleidoscope of brilliance, each culture refracting light in ways we're still learning to see. So which mystery lingers in your mind? The enigma of the crystal skulls, revealing how easily history becomes legend. Or the underwater pyramids, daring us to rethink the timeline of human ambition. Maybe it's the Patagonian giants, reminding us how easily facts twist into myth. Drop your favorite in the comments because every conversation, every debate keeps these stories alive. The past isn't just something we dig up, it's something we rebuild together, one discovery at a time. And who knows, the next great secret might still be out there, hidden beneath a jungle canopy or a desert dune, waiting for the right explorer or the right laser to bring it back into the light. Until then, keep questioning, keep wondering, and above all, keep listening to the echoes of those who walked these lands long before us. Their voices are clearer than we ever